Welcome back to Hardball. Why are some Republicans denying that 9/11 happened on George W. Bush's watch? First, former Bush press secretary Dana Perino said in November, they quote, "We did not have a terrorist attack on our country during President Bush's term." And take a look at these more recent denials by Mary Matlin and Rudy Giuliani.
We inherited the most tragic attack on our own soil in our nation's history.
What he should be doing is following the right things that Bush did. One of the right things he did was treat this as a war on terror. We had no domestic attacks under Bush. We've had one under Obama.
Why is it that the Republicans keep saying that 9/11 didn't happen, or certainly didn't happen under President Bush's watch? Cliff May's the president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and David Corn is the Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones Magazine and a writer for PoliticsDaily.com. Cliff, I don't get it, because these are smart people, and yet we've got, well, most of them are. Dana Perino and Mary Matlin Giuliani all were quoted recently as saying 9/11 didn't happen, or if it did happen, it didn't happen under Bush's watch. Yet this comes after years of talking about nothing but 9/11, especially in Rudy's case.
Yeah, 9/11 happened in 2001, and President Bush had been president for 9 months, and all three of them clearly misspoke. I think the explanation is that the first 9 months of President Bush's term had no theme to it, had no mission to it, and what they meant to say, obviously, was that after 9/11, fighting this war on terrorism became Bush's mission, and that he kept the country safe. There were no successful domestic attacks on the homeland for the remaining 2 terms. That's what they meant to say, and they're misspeaking.
These are two, just a minute, just got to set this straight. Dana Perino and Mary Matlin they have one profession. They're communications advisors to the Republicans. That's what they advise them on. They're not scientists. They don't cut hair. You know what they do? They teach Republicans how to speak. They have systematically made the case that 9/11 didn't happen on Bush's watch. Don't tell me it was an accident, Cliff. I don't buy it. Your thoughts?
Well, let me just respond to that if I can, Chris.
No, you can't yet.
Let
David
come
have
back
a thought,
to me,
and then you can react. I'll get back to you.
You know, you ask if there's a strategy here. When you have a rabid dog running around in circles, you don't say, what is the dog's strategy? These people, I think, are frothing at the mouth in their anti-Obama hatred. I mean, they want to undermine everything they say that he does. Look at what Cliff just said. Even after 9/11, there were no domestic attacks during the Bush years that led to any harm. The anthrax attacks, the attack at the LA counter in LAX, there were plenty of the domestic sniper. There were plenty of domestic attacks. Bush had 7-8 years. Not only did he not catch Al-Qaeda, he didn't really catch anyone in charge of the anthrax attacks. We think we may know now who was behind it, but there was a lot going on. But they say again and again and again, anything that pops into their head to make it look as if Obama doesn't care about terrorism, when, according to intelligence officials, there have been more Predator drone attacks that have taken out Al-Qaeda and Taliban figures in the last year than there were in the last 3 years of the Bush-Cheney administration. So on their own terms, Obama's doing much better, whether it's the right policy or the wrong policy, in terms of taking out terrorists in Pakistan.
I will turn back to Cliff. Your thoughts?
Oh, well, look, in terms of this being a strategy, Chris, you've done political strategy. I have done some in my checkered career. This is not a strategy. I don't think it looks like a strategy. Even Republicans couldn't come up with such a lame strategy as this. I think that, look, I think the Bush people can say as an achievement that President Bush did pretty much keep us safe after 9/11 until he got out of office. Yes, there was an anthrax attack. We don't know who. We don't know. We probably wasn't Al-Qaeda. We don't say that. Yes, there was some guy who went crazy at the El Al desk in Los Angeles. We don't know that this had an Al-Qaeda connection. What we're worried about now, what we should be worried about now, is Al-Qaeda and other militant Islamist organizations and the rogue regime, of course, in Tehran. Now, on some measures, I do think Obama has done well, just as David has said. He has put more troops in Afghanistan and seems to be taking that theater in the war seriously. He has certainly used a lot of drone attacks against terrorists, which a lot of people, evidently David is not among them, think he shouldn't be doing, because we've got this situation where you can kill a suspected terrorist, but if you capture him, he becomes a criminal defendant with all the rights of any
that's
U.S.
an argument
citizen.
we can have.
So
I'm on your side of that one. Let me ask you this. It seems to me that you keep acting as if George W. Bush was somehow not responsible when we have a famous presentation by Condoleezza Rice, the much-respected former Secretary of State, where she made a presentation before a congressional committee where she showed exactly what she warned the president of. Here she is, former national security advisor at the time, Condoleezza Rice, revealing for the first time the title of the presidential daily brief that President Bush got on August of 2001, a month before the 9/11 attacks. Let's watch and listen again so that maybe this time Rudy Giuliani will be watching.
Isn't it a fact, Dr. Rice, that the August 6 PDB warned against possible attacks in this country? And I ask you whether you recall the title of that PDB.
I believe the title was Bin Laden determined to attack inside the United States.
Well, Cliff, your thoughts on that? It seems to me that here's why I think it's strategy when it's being conducted by Mary Matlin, who's a political strategist, closely allied with the former Vice President Dick Cheney. Fair enough, that's her point of view. And Dana Perino, who is only known to us as a political spokesperson, and Giuliani, of course, himself, who's still trying to make his bones as a Republican because he's too moderate on some issues. It seems to me what the scary thing they're trying to do, and it's not you, because I don't think you're just a partisan, I think you're an ideologue. It's to set up, set up a horrendous doomsday scorecard whereby the Republicans had no attacks on us during their watch, which is what these flacks are saying right now. So when and if, and certainly we have to face a future when is probably the right word, sometime again we'll be hit again at some point because we have an enemy constantly looking for opportunity to hit us. They'll be able to say, we weren't hit and they were. Yeah. Therefore, they're not defending America. Well, that's what scares me, that it is strategic, that it is political scorekeeping before the facts, setting up a situation where these people like Dana Perino and Mary Matlin and Rudy Giuliani constantly put out the big lie that they weren't hit on their watch. Therefore, if this president is hit on his watch, they'll be able to say, see, and that's what scares me. It is political.
Yeah, I'm probably not as political or as partisan as you and David. So to me, if we have another catastrophic...
Oh, there's a scorecard.
So if we have, let me finish my point. So if we have another catastrophic attack on American soil, I don't think the big story is how it affects Obama's popularity in the polls.
No, not catastrophic.
Here's what's
Setting
important.
Up the idea that we weren't hit on the Republican watch, to me, is grossly partisan.
Here's what's important. Here's what I think is important. Before 9/11, President Bush did not take militant Islamist terrorism seriously enough. Neither did Clinton during 8 years when we had numerous terrorist attacks. Nonetheless, we took the peace dividend. Neither did George H.W. Bush, and neither did the President Carter after the Islamist revolution. So what I hope is that President Obama will be successful, at least as successful, maybe more so, than President Bush in keeping us safe for the next 3 or 8 years. Okay?
You know, Chris, the scary thing is that Dick Cheney and others again and again act as if they shared no responsibility whatsoever for 9/11. I mean, in those first few months, we now know that Dick Clark and others try to wave the red flag.
What would you have had them do that they didn't do, David?
Paul Wolfowitz said very famously at a meeting. I didn't interrupt you, Cliff.
Yes, you did.
Paul Wolfowitz. No, I didn't. Paul Wolfowitz very famously. Please, enough already. Paul Wolfowitz at a famous meeting early on in the Bush administration said, listen, the problem is Al-Qaeda. Those are little terrorists. The real problem is Saddam Hussein. Yeah. So he got it wrong.
By the way,
he's never apologized for that.
One last hit. Sarah Palin believes that Saddam Hussein attacked us on 9/11. Thank you, Cliff May. Thank you, David Corn.